Hello. Okay, so we're starting in a few minutes. We'll just see if anyone joins us live. Let me share this out from my Facebook page. Ed, can you hear me? Okay, sharing this. Hey, Ed. Okay, let me group. Okay, we'll get started in a bit, guys. I want to make sure Ed, can you hear me? I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Is it let's see. Let me make sure that now I can hear you.
Okay, so I don't need to hit this button. I just learned that.
Yes, you sound fine now. Okay.
Okay, good.
So I think I've shared this out. Ed, you can share it out too. I'm in your page if you like. And let's just get it rolling.
Sounds good.
Okay, so thank you everyone and by the way, if you're watching this live, you can share it out on your own page that you manage. If you want to know who I am Jamila from Journey to Launch. I have a blog and now podcast all about financial freedom. And my goal is to retire from my job in 6 years or less. I'm trying to make that or less happen sooner. And so with my podcast, I recently had Ed, the Millionaire Educator, on. So he's here. And we talked about so much. And I'm going to himself and chat a little bit more. But if you listen to episode 5, which was the episode he was on, how he and his wife became millionaires on teachers' salaries, which is amazing. And it was actually a podcast interview that I heard Ed on first, which really I was on the path already, but I really was inspired by his story. So it's amazing that I got a chance to speak to him on my show from his words, millionaire on a teacher's salary. And the topic is so dear to me. I can relate a lot to what he's doing, and he'll talk more about the 457 plan, which is a vehicle that my husband and I used to save the $85,000 that we did last year, and it's what we're going to continue to use going forward. But with no further ado, Ed, can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Okay, yes. My name's Ed Mills, and it's not my real name, but that's what I use in my blog. But I am a teacher, or I was a teacher. My wife and I taught public school for, I'm doing the calculation here in my head real quick, 12 years, let's say. And at any rate, we became millionaires, but just through using the 457 and other retirement plans that were available to us at work. We have a son, and I guess I should mention here that prior to teaching, we did get our debt taken care of in Saudi Arabia, as I spoke about on the podcast, and that also helped us get a $100,000 nest egg, which we built from there. So we didn't start in the hole in America, but we did build our hole here in America, like many people did. And before I say anything else, I just want to also relay this to the audience. I have made a lot of mistakes financially, and I had a late start. I didn't do it perfectly, and you need to be aware that, if you're in that same predicament, that your financial life is not over. You can still make a lot of progress.
Right, and that's why I liked about your story is that it's not as if you did everything right and I think you said you started like what at what age did you start actual journey? Because it wasn't as if you started in your early financial feed.
Yeah, my journey started at, really, I would say 33. My journey was getting out of the student loan debt, right? And we got out of there at say age 35 is what I was. So that's not young to be doing any of your financial planning. So I definitely had a late start.
Right. So so what was the catalyst? Like, so you said you didn't get out of debt until 35. What, like around that age?
Yeah. Well, I never really had much debt till I got the student loan debt, and my wife did too. And we had, as I mentioned before, $45,000 between us in debt. But I guess the catalyst was a book I read that I always reference is Cashing In on the American Dream, How to Retire at 35 by Paul Terhorst. And you need, if you haven't read that, you need to read it. It's a little dated now, but still it's got a lot of classic information in it. But what I realized is if I had a certain nest egg, a financial nest egg, I would be able to basically just live my life without worrying about money as long as I maintained a, decent lifestyle, but not, I wasn't going to live like a pro athlete or a rock star. And I found out it was pretty attainable. So that's when the light bulb really went off on my end. And actually, I remember reading the book, and I was like, just couldn't put it down. And my wife realized something was going on. And I said, as soon as I finished, I passed it to her, and she had the same experience with the book. So that really gave us a vision. Are you still there?
Okay, it's breaking up just a little bit. And if you're watching live, hopefully you can hear us still. If you can hear us, maybe say, or you can hear us. We will have questions at the end, so Ed can answer your questions, because I know a lot of you guys want to get deep into kind of like mechanics of how he became a millionaire on a teacher's salary. And so, let's kind of get to that. Let's get to the juicy stuff. So how did you do it? I know you explained it in the podcast episode, and if you didn't listen to it yet, you can go and I'll have the I'll type that in where you can listen to it. But how did you do it?
Well, stateside, when I got back here in 2002, I knew I wanted to start funding my IRA and a 403B, those two retirement accounts. And so since 2003 would have been the first year we did it fully. So since 2003, my wife and I have saved at a minimum $30,000. But somewhere along the way, I believe it was 2005, I started using the 457, which means, that's like another whole 401k. So all of a sudden I realized we had these basically 403b, 457 IRA times 2 because of my wife. We had 6 retirement accounts, and we were funding let me just say this, the IRA and 403b we were fully funding every year, and then the 457 we were funding a little bit too. I didn't quite understand how powerful this account was, but around in 2010, we started fully funding that account too. Since 2000.
So for those who for a quick interjection, for those who don't know, what is the 457 plan and who has access to it?
Yeah, 457 is, like I said, like another 401k or 403b plan. It has the same contribution limits of this year. It's 18,000. And if you're over 50, it's 6,000 more. So in my case, I can do 24,000 if I were working. But the thing I really like about a 457 more than the other accounts I mentioned is that when you separate service, you can pull from that source of money as regular income. And so in 2010, we started pulling from our old 457 plans from a previous employer at Troup County Public Schools in Georgia. That meant I had money, a source of income that I could live from while I went to basically sometimes 100% savings rate on my paychecks. So, you can really mushroom your net worth when you're saving your whole paycheck and your wife's whole paycheck. So, when you hear $1 million in teacher, it's kind of sexy. It sounds great, but really the mechanics of it were really boring and mundane. It essentially consisted of going to the human resource office and then filling out the right forms and then saying, I wanted I think some months I did $5,000 to the account, and then you just let it ride, or basically setting up your contribution paperwork. That was the part that most people won't go do. They have that inertia. But boy, I tell you what, I was just going to say, when you get your paycheck at the end of January and you see that you have a 1 cent paycheck, but you see in the column of 457, hello, Jamila. I see you there. Do you see me?
I hope people still are here. Can
We've
you
got a
hear me?
few. I can hear you. Yes. I think
Okay.
it was.
All right. Sorry about that. I do not know what happened, but let's just keep going.
Okay. I was telling everyone that government workers, local and state level, and teachers, firemen, and police officers are generally the ones who have access to this 457 plan.
Right.
And I was also mentioning that my wife and I were unusual in that it seemed that among our coworkers, we were one of not many people use these 457 plans or even the 403B plan. Most people just view them as supplemental, but we viewed them as just, wealth building tools. You get to plow a bunch of money in there, and you also dramatically reduce your taxes. So that's essentially how we did it. And I want everybody to know that this is different from our teacher's pension. We have a teacher's pension in Georgia, and we're members of that, and we will start collecting that at age 60. So I don't know if that covers it, but
Yeah, no, I think before it all cut out, I think that gives a good overview for what the 457 plan, like the benefits. But one of the things you mentioned that I wanted to ask you was you said that you would work and put 100% of your paycheck into the 457 and all the 403B accounts and all the investment accounts, but then you would draw down on your 457 account. Why would it? So what's the difference in just maybe taking some of your income actually from your check versus not taking the money out of the 457?
I've gotten that question in other podcasts, and I like this one. Well, the thing is, it always gave me the control. I mean, I knew I'm not going to take a ton of money out, and I would take it within a certain parameter. It'd be enough just to cover living expenses. But I wanted to make sure that I was going to max out all those tax favored accounts, namely the IRA, 403B, 457, and my health savings account. Yeah, I could have spread it out over 12 months, but I wanted to make sure I started out aggressive right from the beginning. And really, especially when we were doing it over 50, my wife and I, you're looking at $48,000 each, and that usually takes about 9-10 months, even on a decent salary. I say decent, I'm talking about $65,000 each, let's say. So I'm going to need some money, but I wanted to make darn sure that I hammered those, let's say, 10 months, as hard as I could. And I understand the argument that I'm cannibalizing some of my previous accounts. Yeah, okay. But I'm making sure I'm loading up while I have income.
Right. So your priority is to funnel as much money as possible into your retirement accounts, and then you rather take money from the ones you can access now versus using your current income.
Right. And if I have some little, I'll call it residual paychecks, the remains of it, great. But if I'm going to make sure that I'm going to get all that money in there.
Right.
Yeah.
So Nasima, let's take a question while we're just going, so that way we keep everyone engaged. So Nasima asks, can you talk about the tax savings you have taken advantage of?
Well, the biggest tax savings is basically this. I'll give you an example. 2015, my wife and I put $96,000 in our 403B and 457 accounts because we're over 50. So that $96,000 is not taxable income. It's makes with people saving for retirement. They say, we don't want you to be destitute one day, so we encourage you to save this money, and they'll give you this tax break up front. Now, sure, that money will come in as regular income when I start pulling it out later. But, I'll take that deal to have $96,000 essentially just not taxable. And I can worry about how the taxation is going to work out later on down the road. I have some ideas what to do with that already.
Right. So, all right. So how do you get your income, your expenses to be so low? Because I know for me, living in New York, which probably is one of the main problems, is that I live in a high cost of area living. Right. But part of the reason you're able to save so much is because your living expenses are not, high. So like, can you kind of explain and maybe give us examples of like what it costs like for you to live?
Yeah. I'll give you an example. I wrote a post one time talking about how we saved $250,000 by taking crappy jobs. We went to a very rural community in South Georgia, a place called Eccles County, a place I really love. I love the people there, and I like the rural aspect of it. But, you get down there, and there's really not a lot of distractions, and you're not going to go clubbing and spending money going out. Cost of living is pretty moderate. We rented a 3-2 brick ranch house for $750 a month. There was no place really to eat because there's not restaurants in the town. It's a one-stoplight town, Statenville. But we cooked a lot, and like I mentioned in the podcast, my wife and I are both good cooks, so we did very well there. And we had very low transportation costs. I believe the school was about 5 miles from our actual house that we rented. But I'm talking, this is rural driving. This is not 5 miles of city commuting. I see one of my old students there, Taylor Trelaw. But you drive 5 miles on a country road, and great teaching environment, nice people. So, and it didn't cost a lot to live there. So, and by that time, 2009, we started our experiment. We got rid of cable. We went strictly to Netflix. We went, eventually pared it down to where our cable was just low cost, or excuse me, not cable, internet. But, we keep our eye on expenses. Primarily, we keep an eye on, housing, transportation. And that whole time, we had 2 used cars for 12 years, and we just got rid of them last year. But we drove the heck out of those things. And then food costs, that's what eats a lot of people up, eating out. And especially when you're working, you're kind of strapped and you buy things or you go eat somewhere, and you know how that goes. It's not really that good. So you don't even enjoy it. You're just trying to get some food down your mouth. But we took care of all that. We cooked, and we always had food cooked, and we batch cooked. But you keep housing, transportation, and food costs in check. The smaller things will fall in line usually. Mm-hmm. And so, low cost of living to begin with, the geographic arbitrage aspect. And then you actually, I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not big on budgeting. I go for big wins. And, I keep those 3 things low, and everything else will generally work out. The question about do I rent or own? I rented. Now, I would like to own a house again. But something that my wife and I always talk about, owning a Millionaire maker or a crappy house, something about $80,000 or below, which, believe it or not, in most of America you can still get. I'd say like a 3-2 brick ranch. So I would look to buy something like that in the future. But yeah, I didn't go into new jobs and buying homes. I looked to see if there were any real bargains, but I'd never really found something because I'll be honest, I'm not real handy, and I'm not going to go in and renovate a house while I'm teaching all day. It's just very unlikely for me. But some people,
you don't.
I was going to say some people can do that, not me.
Right, and they save a lot of money that way.
Oh yeah, I wish I had that skill because believe me, yeah, maybe the Millionaire Educator.
Well, so you don't. So basically, your wealth necessarily, because I know a lot of people build their wealth sometimes through real estate, but you don't own any homes now, or you own them and you rent them out.
No, I am. You're like this: homeless, carless, jobless, and I don't own a TV.
And you're still happy.
Yes, I am very happy.
See. And I think that's so crazy because I don't know if it's part of what's drilled into us, like the American dream is that, you need to buy a home, you need to, have nice cars, you need to have a good job, you need to work until you're 65. And I speak to people all the time because of, what I'm talking about, that they want to do something different with their lives. Like they don't like, the trajectory they're on. They don't like that it's going to take them forever to retire. But then, they're living in an expensive place. They're, driving, a car that has a lease payment. They're going out to eat still. And I think part of it is like a shock where it's not, because it's for me too. I know if I were to cut certain things out, like my husband and I were able to cut things out, like going out to eat and doing certain things, we would be able to even speed up our retirement or our financial freedom date more. But part of it too is like we're so used to like this luxury of going out to eat. And, we live in New York. We don't have to live in New York. If we sold everything right now, if we sold our house and we sold the investment property, we wouldn't have to really work necessarily again. We'd be able to survive. But we definitely, I don't feel like I'm mentally and emotionally ready for that yet. So I feel like when I hear about you and your story about homeless, jobless, and carless, but you're living in Mexico, your son is going to private school, like it can be done, right? Like, so.
Yeah. I didn't envision myself being in this situation, but, I just realized that I just, as you get older, a lot of people come to this conclusion, the more things you have, the more upkeep you have and the more worry it is, and it just kind of clutters your mind. And the things I do have, I like. I like my computer, and I like my reader, and I've got these two crappy phones that I use to check my email. And but I don't really need a lot of material things. And don't get me wrong, I'm not an ascetic. I'm not, I don't meditate in a cave for months on end or anything like that. But yeah, I just realized, I don't need much, and it's very liberating.
Right, and I think once we learn to detach ourselves from these attachments, these monetary and just physical things that are holding us back, like these shackles. Once we're able to detach ourselves, I think we'll all be able to. If you're watching and you want to also reach financial freedom, you'll be able to do that sooner. The more things you let go and you're not connected or identifying with that you need.
Yeah, I quick story here. A lot of my buddies, coaching buddies and whatnot, they know I like financial topics, and so I'm kind of like the money guy to them sometimes. But it's funny because when I saw some of my buddies back in LaGrange, and I guess they were waiting to see me drive up in that new car, something really fancy. I had the same old 2004 Mitsubishi Galant, and you could just see the disappointment in their faces. It's like I could care less about cars. I've had nice cars, but I just don't like paying the insurance on them, and the foreign mechanics, and because it's a foreign car, let's say, it used to be a big issue. I'm not doing that anymore. I've already committed those mistakes.
Right. Okay. So what would you say to now someone who's watching? If you're watching live, I see that Taylor Luke is already on it. He says, camper lifestyle. My wife and I are sticking it to the man by being mobile. So good job to you, Taylor, and your wife. But like, what do you say now to someone who, is working a middle-class job or even higher income, does not like what they're doing, wants to become a millionaire one day and quit their job and just do what they want? Like, what advice can you give them right now?
What's their debt load?
So they have debt. Maybe they have like $50,000 in student loan, car loan, and other debt.
Yeah, that's manageable. I guess the first thing one of my first pillars is like debt avoidance. So if you're already in debt, I would say it's time to hammer that. And the problem with debt is that it's paid for with after-tax dollars. So it might blow up your tax planning for a year, and you might not be very tax efficient. But I think taking that hit would be worth gaining your financial freedom. But if you really want to hit the fast forward button on financial independence, you might want to be a teacher or a city employee, because believe it or not, they have a lot of plans where you can put money in. And like the case I cited with my wife and I, let me just do the calculation. I had 36, 72, 11. So $84,000, like someone under 50 can save, a couple. 84. Most people I know don't save $84,000 a year, and it'd be another $6,000 a year if you're going to do a health savings account. So that would be $90,000 a year available. Okay,
right.
So that's a little outside the box suggestion, but at a minimum, you need to hammer your IRA, 401k, and your health savings account, and then after that, I would start saving it in my taxable accounts. For example, the Vanguard VTSAX, for example,
Mm-hmm.
total stock market that a lot of people use. But, the first step is you've got to understand that it actually is doable, and I know somebody listening to this is like, yeah, easy for you, you're a millionaire. But the reality is, I wasn't always a millionaire. I made the same dumb mistakes that everybody else has made or is making right now or will make. So you need to understand that, it, in one sense, it's only money. It's not rocket science. And it's like I always tell my son this, like we always talk about, is money the most important thing? No. Your family, your friends, those are much more important than money. But the reason money is important is if you don't control it, it will ruin your life. And I think most people have some experience with that. So, you got to get the money part right to get your freedom. Well, part of the money part is saving. Part of the money part is avoiding debt. The other part is getting your lifestyle in check. You got to figure out a frugal lifestyle that you actually like to live.
Right.
I like my life. I really do. And if I had $10 million today, I don't really see a lot of changes. Isn't that crazy? You think money's on, but money wouldn't really cause my happiness to grow exponentially.
Right.
Because I use the money I have now for happiness.
Right. And I think that's an important point to make is that adopting a more frugal lifestyle, you have to internally accept it and really enjoy it. Because it's like going on a diet, but you're like starving yourself, forcing yourself to eat things you hate. You're not going to last that long on that diet.
No.
But if you learn to really like kale, I don't know, or like salads, and you actually enjoy eating it, and you're just like, what? Like, I love this stuff. It's the same thing with, like, I would say, spending money, right? So some people can't imagine, not going out to eat every weekend. I'm probably one of those people. But
right.
Like, if you can, start to, and like you said in the podcast interview, if you can start to enjoy cooking and like have fun with it, then doing, not going out to eat will not seem as, you're not depriving. It's not seen as you're depriving yourself. You're rewarding yourself. So yeah, I think that's a good point to make.
Yeah, you will notice that once you start cooking more and you master the dishes you like, you will notice when you go out and eat, it is a treat time, so that's or you could move here to Mexico where we go out and eat a little more frequently, and the tabs are from $8 to $12 to $13 for the three of us.
Oh my gosh, and I love Mexican food, so maybe that's what we need to do. Sell everything and move to Mexico. I think that sounds like a plan.
A lot of people are doing it. Hey,
yeah.
I wanted to mention something here in my notes that one of the things we talked about before the show, this is, I guess, kind of like one of the first steps. I just think people should start with maybe, trying to get to a no debt position or low debt, and then couple that with a frugal lifestyle, because what you'll see is, and I heard Paula Pant mention this in one of her shows one time, it's going to cause a gap. Your income minus your living expenses. You look down at the end of the month and you got money left over. And she uses a phrase I really love, mind the gap.
Yeah.
Well,
yep.
That gap is investable money. That gap will provide you with financial freedom. But, start first with the no debt and the frugal lifestyle, and then you'll notice you have money to save.
Right. Right. No, those are good points. All right. So let's take some questions or refer back to the comments to make sure we're addressing everyone's questions. So Nasima asked, how long did it take for you to save the $1 million?
I crossed over with $1 million, I believe, in 2016, and I guess I started saving in 1996. So that was a 20-year journey. But I would say that starting in 2010, that I hit the fast forward button, because from 2010 to 2012 was when we really started hammering. Hello, Ms. Latham. We started hammering all the accounts. And then at Coffee High School in Coffee County, Georgia, and Douglas, Georgia, we also went to this crazy savings mode, hardcore savings as I like to call it. Just to give you a quick idea, in the Eccles County job, we saved, I believe, $263,000 in 3 years. And then in in Douglas, Georgia. In 2 years, we saved $240-something thousand. So, I mean, that's $500,000 in essentially 5 school years.
Right. Okay.
So that was where the bulk of the savings occurred. So, I not that I was doing bad earlier. I was savings, but I wasn't. Your savings rate is probably the most important driver of your net worth, not your rate of return. Because when you're saving 50%, 70%, or whatever, 100% some years, oh my gosh, that you'll have a mushrooming net worth.
Right. Okay, no, that's really good intel on the timeline. So let's see what Robin James asks. Did you ever invest in any individual stocks, riskier options, or strictly mutual funds? And what's your response to those who say the market is top heavy and future S&P returns will only be 4 to 5%? Would you change your strategy?
I hear that a lot. I have only used basically mutual funds, primarily index funds or target retirement funds. The market might be heavy, sure, but I'm not that smart. I don't really know how to outguess the market. My plan is to hold forever, and keep in mind, at age 60, which will be 7 years for me, I'll be taking a pension, so I will have cash coming in, and I have enough cash to get me there now. So I'm going to maintain an aggressive position. I don't know future returns, but I'm not really comfortable with a lot of the other options. I know stocks as a class generally yield more than bonds or let's say money markets. So I realize the risk I'm exposed to, and I am heavy in the VTSAX. I think about 90 or 85% of my holdings are in that. It's a problem that millionaires have to deal with.
That's a good problem, I guess.
Yeah,
and I mean, I'm also very heavily into VTSAX. For me, I don't want. Yes, it'd be great to beat the market, but I'm realistic, and I don't think that I can, and I don't have the time to. I don't have the time to research and pick stocks, and for me, while I think that investing in doing that type of investing is great for some people, I find that if I like to invest, I just love the VTSAX. I feel like it's just super easy, just set it and forget it, and has consistent returns.
Yes, I agree. And if you don't like that fund, there are things like the life strategy growth funds at Vanguard, or 15 basis points you're into a growth portfolio with international, domestic stocks and some bond. Yeah, I have an MBA, but I don't want to monitor a portfolio 24/7. I mean, it's just not my thing.
Right. Okay. Let's see. Do we have any more questions? Okay, some more questions are coming in. So we'll keep going as long as, we don't want to make this too long, but I definitely want to address everyone's questions. And so let's see. Taylor said, I heard Jenny's financial story in debt. He told me I guess that's, okay. He told me a story of him working at a gas station with 20,000. Okay, he was able to start living. This guy is living testament. Okay. Okay, Taylor Luke asks, thoughts on how important credit is?
Well, I guess credit's important if you're going to buy a house, which I'm not looking to do anytime soon. When you have to go out and purchase things on credit, you're going to need a good credit score. So make sure you take care of that score. And if you use, Credit Sesame and Credit Karma, you always can know where you stand in that. My advice to a young person is maybe get one credit card and make sure you pay that thing off religiously, not partially, in toto. Because you want good credit. Now, it's kind of funny me talking about credit because I'm a travel hacker and I've had, so many cards the last few years opened and closed. But, that said, with all those transactions and cards, I saw my credit score today. I think it was an 828, So as long as you take care of business and make the payments, your credit score can be really good. But, I never had a bad credit score because I never really had credit cards most of my life, but I know they're essential. If you're going to get a loan on a house, a car, Do not carry consumer debt on credit cards, though. That just ruins so many people.
Yeah. Okay. So Stephanie asks, do you try to save and withdraw money equally from both yours and your wife's account, or do you particular accounts in certain situations?
Yeah, that's a good question, because this year we've taken, let's say, $10,000 from my wife's 457 plan and only $7,000 for mine. Our 457 balances are roughly equal, and I'm speaking about the accounts. Well, I guess we don't have a job anymore, but they're all former employers. So yeah, I think we're sitting about $40,000 each in those accounts. I like to kind of keep it, to where like they're about the same. Yeah. But yeah, we're not just withdrawing down from hers first and then we're going to go to mine. I mean, really at the end of the day, that we view those accounts as freedom funds. They're not really for retirement. Those are the funds to get us to age 60.
The 457 accounts are to get you to age 60.
Yes. Now, let me say, I have taken some of my 457 money from another account at one time, and we did send it into our a Roth IRA, a rollover, not a Roth, an IRA rollover account. So yeah, I generally like to keep a big pot of 457 money because we can pull that strategically as needed. But if I have like what I thought was too much 457 money, I just put it in the rollover IRA, so I can start investing it in stocks or mutual funds.
Tracy Kia loving him. Tracy asks, "Are you invested in real estate?" But you said no, you don't own real estate right now.
No, I don't even own a REIT. That's probably something I'm going to work on in the next year or so. Just to have what we would call a landing pad when we get back to the States. We have our own place to go to. Mm-hmm. But like I said, at probably $80,000 or less, probably brick 3-2 ranch. That's what I want, probably in a small town.
Right.
That's
walkable. See, saving on the transportation costs. Okay.
Yes.
So Cheryl asks, what is the minimum you should invest in a Vanguard account?
Well, the minimum to open an account is $3,000. Or you can get into a target retirement fund for $1,000. That's a good avenue into a Vanguard fund. The Admiral shares require $10,000, but as you build up to that, you can just convert those to those type of shares. But how much should you save? Infinity squared.
Right. Well, I think it's the minimum. I think a lot of people don't probably have necessarily. Since maybe some people are still working from an in-debt position, they don't have like that money. But I do know that you can do ETFs. So Kia asks again, like how do you feel about ETFs? So I know you can buy ETFs for smaller amounts, right? Like, yeah, I'm not too sure, but.
Well, I know a lot of the criticisms early about ETFs is a lot of people bought them and basically traded them like stocks, and that's pretty much why you don't want to own the market, is to trade it. That's not what most people are looking to do. But anyway, I have some ETFs. I believe it's a VTI. It's a total market ETF for Vanguard. Now you have that for my health savings account through Ameritrade, and I like them. Yeah, I think I have like $30,000 parked in that, and it tracks the market. That's what I want to do. I'm taking a bet on capitalism.
Right.
So. You mentioned, some people are coming out of position of debt, and if they're just trying to get a bucket of money in a mutual fund or ETF, Schwab has some really low cost funds. I believe they're as low as 3 basis points now for total stock market. 3 basis points, no minimums, so you can get in there.
And 3 basis points is 0.03% fees.
Yeah, I mean that's the lowest I've seen, other than say an institutional share. So yeah, I mean it's really low cost. So if you're just trying to establish an account, sometimes you need to have those accounts just for a morale boost, I mean, and as you see that go to 50, 100, 200, that's your money. So if you're looking to start an account just to the first step on the journey of 1,000 miles, you can go to Schwab and get in at virtually nothing.
Right. No, that's good advice. Okay, do we have any more questions before we begin to wrap up? And you know what? I tried something new. So if you're still watching and you'd like to receive like a message from me that gives you the private Journey to Launch Facebook group, and then also links you to all the podcast episodes where you can also find Ed's podcast interview if you haven't heard it yet, just write join in the comment, and you should get a message. So I'm just testing this out. This is the first time I've done this. But if you'd like to receive an automatic message from me that gives you a link to the Facebook group that you can join, and then also a link to where you can listen to the podcast and check out Ed's episode, just write join in the comments and let me know if you get anything. But Ed, okay. Kathy, I hope you get something. Oh, Kia. All right. So one more question, and then we're going to wrap up. We're going to have Ed just tell us what he's doing, what he's up to, and where you can connect more with him. So Kia asks, should I invest in HSA?
If you have access to a high deductible healthcare plan and you're in relatively good health, and you don't, like, for example, we're all healthy, the three of us. We don't spend a lot of money going to the doctor and taking medications. A high deductible healthcare plan might be a really good option for you, and that will allow you to set aside, I believe it's about $3,400 a year. And I view that money as like a retirement account. I don't plan on it. If I have to use it for health-related issues, I will. But at age 65, I can access that money just like a regular retirement account. So yeah, you might want to consider that because it's also tax deductible. So it comes off your income.
It's tax deductible and tax free when you get it out again, right?
If you use it for medical expenses, yes. So I mean, it's tax deductible, coming out, and it grows tax deferred, and then it's tax free when you spend it for health issues. So yeah, I mean, it's a good one. It really is.
Okay. Well, this kind of C-Max, I said no more questions, but this question kind of leads into where you are now and what you're doing. So what are your monthly expenses now, which kind of says, like, you can then explain where you are, kind of like the lifestyle you're living, and then let everyone know where we can connect with you and find more about what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm in Merida, Mexico, where we're going to be spending this next year. My son starts school Monday, and he'll be learning Spanish this year in a little private school. He's a sixth grader. He's a little nervous, as you can imagine, but he'll be fine. We have an apartment. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. I need to do a periscope to show everyone that. It's 9,000 pesos, which is roughly $500. We have air conditioning in the bedroom, so you need to hear Merida gets pretty hot and a little stuffy. But, we essentially won't have much of a winter this year. It's today's high was 93. And it'll be about 90 in December and January. And we're just taking some time off from work again, and we're going to enjoy life. And my plan is to work on my blog more and a book idea that I have. And I'm jinxing myself talking about it. But, I'm going to get serious about this and being a little more active. My blog is millionaireeducator.com. You can find me there. I have a small Facebook and Twitter presence, so you can send me a message there also. But millionaireeducator.com, and I'm working on actually doing a better job curating my articles so they're more accessible to potential readers.
Oh, that's great. So I just want to thank everyone that watched live, that if you're going to watch the replay, thank you so much for, joining us. I hope you learned a lot from Ed. If you want to hear the original interview that I did with Ed, you can go to journeytolaunch.com/episode 5. I'll also have that in the description, so you can directly click on that. And if you just want to say join in the comments, you'll get an automatic link in your Facebook messenger with some of these links. So Ed, thanks so much again for taking the time out and chatting with us, and being my first live after show podcast guest. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'll come on anytime you want. I love to talk about this stuff, and thank you for all the people that came to say hello to us here on this. I look forward to your questions and comments. Thank you.
All right, thanks guys.